Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here again, taking those complex source materials you send us and trying to turn them into something clear, something actionable.
And today's task, set by you, our listener, is, well, it's a big one, a really big one.
It really is. We're looking at synthesizing a potential solution to the antimicrobial resistance crisis, AMR. It's accelerating, and it's, frankly, terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying is the right word. It's not just some, incremental problem for pharma companies. This is existential.
We're talking about infections that used to be simple, treatable, now becoming major threats because the drugs, the antibiotics, they just aren't working like they used to.
Exactly. It undermines so much of modern medicine. Surgery, cancer treatment, even managing chronic conditions relies on effective antimicrobials. Their failure challenges the whole profession.
And our sources are pretty blunt about this. The old hope, the idea that we'll just invent, 18 new antibiotics to fight off these superbugs.
Yeah, the source says that's likely to remain a dream.
Right. So relying purely on finding new drugs, that seems like a dead end. We're hitting a wall.
A biological wall, as you said. And that failure, that reality check, it forces us to think differently. We need a paradigm shift.
And the documents you provided suggest this shift comes from convergence, bringing two sort of distinct approaches together.
That's right. Two powerful halves of a potential solution. First, there's the modern defense strategy exemplified by Dr. Maya's work.
Her focus is on prevention, protection. Really strong, practical steps.
Yes. Reducing that dependency culture. Fewer unnecessary drugs, fewer flawed procedures, building a strong frontline defense.
But, and this is the crucial gap identified in the mission you set for us, her system is primarily defense. It's about preventing spread, diagnosing quickly.
But it doesn't inherently offer a deep internal method to heal someone when, inevitably, a resistant bug gets through and the drugs don't work.
Exactly. Which brings us to the second half. This is where we take that, let's call it a radical leap.
Into the ancient world.
Into ancient Indian spiritual practices. Looking for those consciousness-based healing principles. Tantra, yoga, metaphysics. Finding that internal regenerative power that's missing.
So our deep dive today is all about that synthesis. Can we unpack these ancient technologies, understand their principles, and then, crucially, integrate them with a rigorous modern system like Dr. Maya's?
That's the goal, to see if we can map out a truly revolutionary path, one that addresses both the external threat managing the spread and the internal capacity to heal, especially when facing these 21st century superbugs.
A tall order, but let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with the modern side of the equation first. The sheer severity of the AMR threat. It's easy to sort of glaze over the acronym, but this is a global health emergency.
It absolutely is. When antibiotics fail, common infections, pneumonia, urinary tract infections, skin infections, they can become lethal again. It's like rolling back the clock to before penicillin.
Which impacts everything. Basic surgeries become high risk. Organ transplants, chemotherapy, they all rely on controlling infection.
And the problem isn't just the bugs becoming resistant. It's compounded by, well, systemic issues within healthcare itself. Over-reliance on drugs, maybe.
And a crisis of trust, perhaps. Dr. Maya's work, according to our sources, really highlights this credibility crisis.
Yes, she points to this issue of relying too heavily on broad statistical guidelines.
The statistical ideology phrase, I found that really striking.
It is striking. Her argument is that sometimes following these large-scale guidelines can mean overlooking the specific needs, the clinical reality of the individual patient. It can even compromise their dignity.
So how can prioritizing statistics become, well, unethical? That seems counterintuitive initially.
Well, think about it. Dr. Maya stresses that the best defense against AMR is early identification, isolation, prevention.
Right.
Makes sense. Stop it spreading. But if the guidelines used for diagnosis or treatment, even if based on big studies aren't absolutely perfect, maybe only 95% right.
Then for some patients, following them blindly could lead to the wrong outcome or unnecessary treatment.
Precisely. They aren't, as she puts it using a Sanskrit term, vedavakyam. Not absolute divine truths to be followed rigidly regardless of the individual picture.
So her approach champions.
Okay.
What? Clinical judgment?
Clinical wisdom, yes. And respecting the uniqueness of each patient. It's about empowering the healthcare professional and even the patient to use critical thinking rather than just ticking boxes based on potentially flawed guidelines.
And to facilitate that shift, to empower people, she developed practical tools, an app, books, designed for everyone involved.
From the receptionist taking the call to the nurse, the doctor in training, and critically, the patients themselves, giving them tools to help differentiate minor issues from serious ones. quickly.
Because knowledge of health is knowledge of life. That's our motto, isn't it?
It is. The aim is practical. Reduce unnecessary appointments, stop serious infections from spreading in waiting rooms, and crucially, cut down on prescribing antibiotics for viral things they can't treat anyway. That last point directly fuels AMR.
How does she make this practical? I understand there's a color system involved.
Yes, a really clever color-coded triage system. It distills complex clinical insight into something accessible for rapid decision-making.
Okay, walk us through it. How does it work? Let's start with red.
Okay, red is for unambiguous emergencies. The example given is a high-pitched cry in a baby.
Right, that specific sound.
That specific sound signals potential severe distress, maybe neurological. It needs immediate hospital evaluation. No question, no delay, no self-diagnosis attempt. It's non-negotiable.
Got it. Red means immediate expert help. What about, say, yellow? The example was a heat rash.
A heat rash is usually minor, self-limiting, so yellow encourages a different path, maybe self-care first or checking with a pharmacist. It avoids automatically escalating to a doctor or AED for common manageable issues.
So it's managing resources, reducing dependency.
Exactly, saving hospital capacity for genuine emergencies. Then you have intermediate colors.
Like green for a hoarse voice.
Green signals assessment needed. It's not automatically an emergency, but it requires checking vital signs, pulse, temperature, maybe looking for specific rashes to see if it's just a simple laryngitis or part of something more serious. It promotes diligence but avoids immediate panic.
Okay, diligence. And then blue E for being hot and sweaty.
Blue flags potential contagion. This is key for AMR. If signs suggest a possible infectious cause, BLUE directs the person to isolate and seek advice before going to a clinic or waiting room.
Ah, so it physically stops the spread right at the entry point.
Precisely. This simple triage, applied early, drastically reduces the chance of spreading resistant bacteria within healthcare settings. It's a powerful protective measure for the whole community. Patient protection focused.
It's clever. It empowers people, give them agency over their health decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But she also warns about self-diagnosis, right? The double-edged sword.
Absolutely. Empowerment is key, but just Googling symptoms can lead people down dangerous paths. Misinformation, misdiagnoses, delayed treatment. The goal is informed agency, breaking dependency, but maintaining that clinical rigor.
So it's a strong preventative framework, really focused on managing that external threat, the spread.
Essential work. But it highlights the gap we discussed. What happens when prevention fails, when a resistant infection does take hold?
And the standard drugs aren't an option.
Then we need something more. We need that healing mechanism, which forces us to shift our perspective quite dramatically.
And so now we make that shift. We move away from the battlefield of microbes and drugs, and we turn inward, towards consciousness itself.
This is where the ancient Indian science, sometimes termed occultism in the sources, offers a fundamentally different starting point.
It suggests that real knowledge of health doesn't just come from looking at the body from the outside.
But from an inner or spirit sight, a deeper perception.
That's a profound difference. What's the metaphysical basis for that?
Well, in this spiritual science, the ultimate reality, the supreme deity, often represented as Shiva, is understood as pure, unbounded spirit or consciousness.
And crucially, our own essential nature, the self, the Atman, or Jivatma, is also that same pure consciousness.
That's the core identity. We are consciousness, fundamentally.
And if consciousness is primary, then what about the physical body? The sources say it's considered, what? An idea, a thought.
Yeah, exactly. The body, and indeed the entire physical world, is seen as a manifestation, an appearance within consciousness. Generated by the creative power, the energy of the divine, often personified as the great goddess, the Maya Shakti Devi.
Maya, often translated as illusion, but maybe more like appearance. Unreal in the ultimate sense.
Precisely. It's not that it isn't real in our experience, but that its reality is secondary, derived from the primary reality of consciousness.
Okay, hold on. If the body is just a thought, how does that square with the intense physical reality of suffering from, say, a superbug infection?
Yeah.
That feels very real, not just an idea.
It reframes the problem. It suggests the physical laws governing the infection, the biology, the chemistry, are the rules of the Maya, the appearance. They operate at that secondary level.
So the spiritual practices aren't denying the physical reality.
Not at all. They're designed as technologies to work on the primary level, a level of consciousness, to change the secondary manifestation, which is the physical body and its state of health or disease.
So the illness itself, from this perspective, is like a negative or disharmonious thought form that is manifested physically.
You could see it that way. And the healing involves using specific tools or technologies of consciousness to dissolve that negative thought form and replace it with one rooted in the inherent health and purity of the underlying self, the pure consciousness.
Okay, that's the framework. So what are these technologies? How do you actually do that?
The first and perhaps most fundamental tool is sound, vibration, specifically mantra.
Mantras, we hear that term a lot. What exactly is it according to these sources?
A mantra is defined as a verbal formula. It could be specific sounds, phones, syllables, words, or phrases, often derived from Sanskrit.
And the key thing is?
The key thing is that when this formula is uttered correctly, either aloud or even just mentally, it is believed to inevitably produce a specific, desired transformative effect.
Inevitably. That sounds quite deterministic, almost mechanical.
The sources explicitly describe it as a dimension of mechanical transaction within this system of thought. It's not like a prayer asking for intervention. It's more like inputting a command.
A command into what? The universe. Consciousness.
Into the fabric of reality, which is understood to be vibrational. The power, the Shakti of the mantra is called the Vachaka Shakti. That's the means, the tool itself.
And that tool achieves the goal.
It achieves the Vacha Shakti, which is the object or the desired outcome, healing, transformation, whatever the mantra is for. Each mantra is seen as a specific sound form, a rupa, of the ultimate reality, the Brahman.
And its validity comes from?
From the tradition. From generations of use and documented effects, it's considered proven technology within its own framework.
So it's not just about the meaning of the words, it's the actual sound, the vibration.
Primarily the vibration, yes. It links to incredibly deep concepts about the nature of reality. Mantras are connected to the supreme word, vak, and the primordial sound or resonance, nada, the underlying hum of creation, if you like.
And how does that cosmic sound connect to healing the individual body?
For the mantra to really work its magic, especially in an esoteric sense, that nada, that resonance, needs to be activated within the practitioner. It's meant to rise through the central psychic channel, the sumna.
The sumna that runs along the spine in yogic anatomy, right?
Correct. And this is where we connect to Kundalini Shakti.
The coiled serpent power, the latent energy.
Exactly. Kundalini is conceived as this immense potential, this divine power, dormant at the base of the spine. The correct practice of mantra, combined with focused intention.
Acts like the key.
It acts like the command or the catalyst to awaken that Kundalini energy and guide it upwards through the sumuna towards the higher centers of consciousness in the brain, often symbolized as the thousand-petaled lotus, the Sahasrara chakra.
So the mantra isn't just an external sound hitting the ear. It's a tool to ignite an internal process, to tap into the body's own deep energy source.
Precisely. The mantra's power becomes amplified, validated, by being infused with this awakened internal energy.
Okay, that's the theory. How was this actually applied to, real-world physical problems, like serious illness or injury?
We have a documentation showing it was used for very practical, life-threatening situations. Snakebite is a classic example cited.
Snakebite. How would a mantra help against venom?
The sources describe treatments where specific mantras were used alongside, importantly, physical remedies like herbal decoctions and ointments. It wasn't necessarily instead of physical treatment, but integrated with it.
What kind of mantra?
One example given uses the Rudra mantra. The text mentions chanting, "Oh Kapila, take the poison, Sud destroy, Swaha." This was part of the protocol to neutralize the venom.
Okay, I have to ask. How is a sound formula supposed to counteract a complex biological toxin like snake venom on a molecular level?
From the perspective of this ancient science, the venom isn't just molecules. It's introducing a powerful, disharmonious, destructive thought or vibration into the body's elemental balance.
Back to the elements and consciousness.
Right. The specific vibration of the Rudra mantra, combined with the focused intent of the practitioner or healer, is believed to directly counteract that destructive vibration at the consciousness or energetic level.
So it's working on the subtle blueprint first.
Yes. It aims to nullify the toxic thought form, preventing it from fully manifesting its destructive potential physically. This, in turn, clears the way for the physical remedies, the herbs, to work more effectively and quickly. It shows these weren't just abstract ideas, they were considered frontline, actionable healing technologies for immediate physical threats.
Fascinating. So beyond sound, what about form and visualization? The sources mention yantras.
Yes, yantra. These are symbolic diagrams, often geometric, sometimes quite complex, like the famous Sri Yantra. They serve as focal points for meditation.
So you stare at it. How does that work as a healing technology?
It's not just passive staring. It requires a specific kind of cultivated seeing, referred to as anusmati.
Anusmati, what does that mean?
It translates best as something like steady keeping in mind or active cognitive remembrance. It's about holding the form, the deity, or the concept represented by the yantra firmly and continuously in the mind's eye.
So it's an intense mental discipline.
Very much so. For someone practicing devotionally, visualizing the yantra, which often represents a divine form, is an act of deep connection and commitment. It helps focus the mind, which naturally tends to scatter.
In focusing the mind, how does that help heal?
By focusing intensely on the perfect, harmonious form of the yantra, the practitioner is essentially imprinting that harmony onto their own consciousness. It enhances the experience of the divine or the principle it represents, and through that, aligns the inner state towards health and order.
Can you describe what that practice might feel like? Is it just picturing it?
It's more demanding. It often involves mentally constructing the yantra layer by layer, maybe coordinating it with mantra recitation, understanding the symbolism of each part. It's about building an internal reality, an image construct so powerful and stable that it begins to reshape the practitioner's inner world and, by extension, their physical reality.
Okay, that makes sense as a mental technology. Now, how does this link to the physical practices like yoga asanas? We tend to think of those purely as exercise in the West.
And that's really just scratching the surface, as one source notes, maybe the lowest hanging fruit. Good for flexibility, maybe easing some pain, sure, but the original purpose is much deeper.
Deeper in what way?
These postures, these asanas, aren't just random stretches invented for fitness. They have histories. They're often traced back to and named after figures and stories from the Puranas, the ancient texts, sages, gods, epic events.
So there's a story behind each pose.
Often, yes. And understanding the myth, the story, the function of that narrative is key to understanding the experience the posture is designed to facilitate. It's not just about the physical shape.
Can you give an example? You mentioned Hanuman and Surya earlier.
Right. The story of Hanuman wanting to learn the sacred Vedas from Surya, the sun god. Surya travels constantly, he can't stop.
So Hanuman.
Hanuman, embodying incredible strength and devotion, flew backwards in front of Surya, matching his speed across the sky, maintaining eye contact, absorbing the teachings despite the intense heat and effort. He understood that even a short period of such focused, intense learning was incredibly valuable.
Wow, that's quite an image.
It transforms the asana. When you perform a posture associated with Hanuman, you're not just doing a physical movement, you're consciously embodying that spirit of dedication, focus, the power to overcome immense challenges through sheer will and devotion.
So the pose becomes a physical enactment of a principle.
Exactly. Or think of Anantasana, Vishnu resting on the cosmic serpent Ananta. It's not just lying on your side, it's embodying cosmic relaxation, equilibrium, the stable foundation of the universe. The pose becomes a tool for experiencing that state.
So the physical posture and the mythic philosophical lesson are intertwined.
Inseparably. The ultimate goal of yoga in this context isn't fitness, it's philosophical. It's about achieving enlightenment, samadhi.
How does holding a pose lead to enlightenment?
By systematically working through the body and mind, yoga aims to illuminate all the blind spots, all the areas obscured by ignorance, avidya. The physical benefits, alleviating suffering, are part of clearing the ground, but the deep purpose is to leave no place for ignorance to hide.
And if ignorance is the root of suffering and disharmony,
Then eliminating ignorance, achieving that state of pure awareness, naturally leads to the cessation of suffering, including disease, which is seen as a manifestation of that underlying ignorance or imbalance. #C, practices for mental and elemental purification.
Okay, so we have sound, visualization, and posture linked to myth. What about practice focused more directly on mental states and the body's composition?
Right, we move into practices like meditation or dhyana. This is about sustained, focused, calm thinking or contemplation.
We hear a lot about meditation's benefits now, stress reduction, focus. How do the sources connect it mechanistically? There was that comparison to coffee.
Yeah, the comfy analogy might capture the dopamine boost, but it's much deeper. Dhyana, especially when combined with breath control, pranayama, directly influences the autonomic nervous system
Shifting from fight or flight to
to the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This state actively enhances the body's own ability to produce and regulate key neurotransmitters: serotonin for mood, dopamine for motivation, GABA for calmness.
So it's teaching the body to self-regulate its own chemistry for optimal balance, not just getting a quick fix like caffeine.
Exactly. It's cultivating an internal environment of stability and well-being, independent of external drugs or stimuli. Foundational work.
And what about purifying the physical body itself? You mentioned the elements earlier.
Yes, the tantric tradition has a specific, often complex ritual practice called bhuta shuddhi.
Bhuta Shuddhi, purification of the elements.
Precisely. Bhuta means element. Shuddhi means purification. The physical body is seen as composed of the 5 great elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, akasha. This practice aims to purify these constituent elements within the individual.
Purifying the building blocks of the body.
Yeah.
How does that concept connect to, say, modern ideas about health and resilience?
There's a fascinating parallel, actually, with our modern understanding of the gut microbiome.
The bacteria in our gut. How does that relate to ancient elements?
Well, think about it. This vast community of microbes living within us has a profound impact on our physical and mental health. They're like a hidden organ.
They produce neurotransmitters, right, like serotonin.
Huge amounts. Estimates suggest maybe 90% of the body's serotonin is made in the gut, plus dopamine, GABA, chemicals absolutely essential for mood, stress response, mental clarity.
So the state of our internal elemental balance, in a way, is reflected in the health of our microbial ecosystem.
You could definitely draw that parallel. And what influences that ecosystem? Diet, lifestyle, stress.
Which connects to practices recommended in our sources for well-being. Things like gratitude, focusing on happy memories.
Exactly. Those practices directly influence brain chemistry, promoting serotonin release. And the sources also mention using essential oils like bergamot, lavender, lemon for mental state influencing mood via the olfactory system and potentially other pathways.
And diet is key for the microbiome. The sources mention specific dietary approaches.
Yes, things that support a healthy gut. A high intake of polyphenols and antioxidants found in things like the Mediterranean diet, lots of fruits, vegetables, olive oil. These feed beneficial gut bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium.
So good food promotes good internal elements.
Pretty much. Also, fermented foods, things like kefir, traditional yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, they directly introduce beneficial bacteria, helping to colonize the gut and support digestion and immunity.
And omega-3s.
Crucial. Found in fatty fish, flax seeds, walnuts. They have powerful anti-inflammatory effects and protect nerve cells, ensuring good communication between that balanced gut and the brain. It's all interconnected.
It really shows an integrated system. Physical practices like diet, mental practices like gratitude or meditation, sensory inputs like essential oils, all working together towards that goal of purification and balance, both elemental and microbial.
And then, underpinning much of this is the power of focused intention itself. The sources bring up prayer.
Prayer as a healing practice.
Described as an ancient practice that's becoming new again, it highlights that continuous thread. The idea that focused thought, concentrated energy, directed intention can influence reality. It loops right back to that core idea of consciousness being primary.
Which brings us right to the synthesis, the core of the mission you set for us. We have Dr. Maya's system, modern, rigorous, focused on preventing spread, accurate diagnosis, reducing dependency, protecting us from the external threat.
That's pillar 1, essential for managing AMR in the world.
And then we have the ancient wisdom focused on internal defense, strengthening the system from within, and crucially offering methods to heal the cause, especially when external measures fail.
That's pillar 2, addressing the internal state, the root of health. And the claim is we need both pillars working together to create a truly revolutionary healthcare approach for this post-antibiotic era.
Okay, let's solidify pillar 1 again. Prevention and diagnostic agency via Dr. Maya, its critical role.
It's about vigilance and knowledge. As the sources state, identifying infected patients early and isolating them is currently the only option we really have to significantly slow the spread of resistant bacteria systemically.
It reduces the pressure cooker environment where resistance thrives.
Exactly. Her tools, like the color system, give agency back to patients and clinicians, help avoid diagnostic errors, stop antibiotic misuse for viruses, and protect the community. It's critical thinking applied to public health. Vigilance rooted in clinical wisdom.
But vigilance isn't foolproof. Prevention can fail. A superbug can take hold.
Yeah.
And when the drugs don't work, that's the reality we have to face.
That's the post-antibiotic necessity. which forces us to activate Pillar 2, internal healing capacity.
And the sources describe this spiritual healing not as some vague hope or miracle.
No, they frame it as natural and real, because it aims to address health at its absolute source within consciousness itself.
The key difference being,
It's not just about symptom removal. It's about discovering and eliminating the fundamental cause of the disease.
which could be, what, according to this view?
It could stem from deep-seated conflicts, unresolved karmic patterns, maybe even influences from past lives, according to some traditions, or fundamentally a lack of awareness or identification with one's true nature as pure consciousness. The goal is to fix the root disharmony.
Okay, so if a superbug is physically present, causing damage, and it's resistant to all our chemical weapons, what specific mechanism does this ancient wisdom propose to physically cure that infection, bypassing the need for drugs?
This is where Tantra, in particular, offers a very direct, though esoteric mechanism.
Kriya.
Kriya, meaning action or initiation.
Yes, it often refers to specific techniques or processes, usually imparted directly by a qualified teacher, a guru, to the disciple. The purpose is to actively, intentionally rouse that latent divine power within.
The Kundalini again. Often, yes. The Kriya acts as a kind of focused, accelerated spiritual practice designed to awaken and channel that energy.
How is a guru-imparted Kriya fundamentally different from, say, a pharmaceutical intervention in tackling a resistant infection?
Okay, a drug works chemically. It tries to target a specific molecule or process in the pathogen. If the pathogen mutates, develops a defense against that specific chemical attack, the drug fails. Resistance.
Right. The bug outsmarts the chemical.
Kriya, on the other hand, isn't working primarily at the chemical level. It's operating at the energetic, the vibrational, the elemental level. Its ultimate aim isn't just to kill a bug, but to bring the practitioner into a state of realization, of unity with the underlying reality identification with the Lord, or pure consciousness, as the sources put it.
So if you achieve that state of unity, that pure consciousness, and the body is just a thought or manifestation within that consciousness,
Then activating that pure, inherent spiritual power, the awakened Kundalini, is like hitting reboot on the system from the highest administrative level. It's an act of radical internal reorganization and regeneration.
which transcends the specific chemical battle with the bacteria.
That's the idea. The awakened consciousness naturally restores harmony. It performs its own profound Bhutashuddhi, purifying the elements. The physical infection, the superbug, becomes a secondary issue that resolves because the primary imbalance, the spiritual disharmony or ignorance, has been corrected.
So it bypasses drug resistance because the healing source isn't a drug from outside.
It's the inherent regenerative power of consciousness itself, accessed through these specific technologies. The ultimate healer is awakened within. That's the potential pathway offered, independent of the failing pharmaceutical arsenal. #V. Conclusion and final thought.
Well, this has been quite a journey. I think we've successfully navigated the listener's complex mission, mapping out this potential synthesis.
We've definitely laid out the two pillars. Dr. Maya's rigorous, modern, patient-first approach to prevention and diagnosis.
Honoring science, but demanding clinical wisdom and individual focus.
Combined with the deep, transformative potential of ancient Indian healing technologies. The ones rooted in consciousness, vibration, elemental purification.
It's a model that tries to address both sides, managing the external threat effectively, while cultivating the internal power to heal from the root, moving beyond just symptom management.
Towards realizing an intrinsic state of health, potentially.
And as we wrap up, it really brings us back to that foundational point about consciousness itself. The ancient view we explored posits consciousness not as something the brain produces, but as the fundamental reality from which everything else arises.
Which means the modern scientific impulse to only look for physical correlates, to try and measure or prove consciousness using purely physical tools. Well, it might be missing the point. It's based on that underlying assumption, maybe a fallacy, that only the physical is truly real.
But if we accept, even hypothetically, that consciousness is primary,
then it opens up entirely new vistas for understanding health and healing. If the physical world, including disease, including our bodies, is a manifestation within consciousness, a form of Maya,
an appearance, however convincing,
then working directly with consciousness isn't just alternative therapy. It becomes the most fundamental approach possible.
Which leads us to the final thought, the question we want to leave with you, the listener, to mull over. If these ancient philosophies are right, if the body is ultimately a thought, and healing involves realizing pure consciousness, What new possibilities truly open up for radical healing, especially now, facing a threat like AMR, where our physical tools are failing?
And critically, what does this imply institutionally? If the power to overcome disease lies not just in the next synthetic compound, but potentially within us, access through spiritual technologies, what is the future role of the hospital, the doctor, the regulatory agencies, the entire pharmaceutical industry in facilitating or perhaps even integrating such a paradigm shift? What needs to change systemically to embrace this potential?